Thanks a lot for joining in the second edition of the Healthcare Transformation Summit. We have been uh, having an enticing panel discussion since morning. We had one panel on EHR, which the CIOs from various big hospitals pan India had participated. Now we have an panel discussion on HealthTech investments, the do's and don'ts, and we have a great panel among us here to share their valuable insights. I would say thanks for all the panelists over here who has joined us this afternoon to give their points and deliberations on this important topic. I would like to introduce the panel to you all. Mr. Gotham Khanna, the CEO of PD Indija Hospital. Thanks a lot, sir, for joining in. Dr. Radhakumar Jairam, Chairman, CEO, and GMD Columbia Asia Hospital. Dr. Mr. Rupak Barua, Director and CEO, AMRI Hospital Limited. Yeah, easier. And Mr. Devanand KT, Chief Executive Officer, Aster Prime Hospital, Hyderabad. Dr. Venkat Ramana Sudigalli, Director and CEO, Excel Multi-Speciality Hospital, Hyderabad, and Mr. Varun Nangia, Head Marketing, BPL Medical Technologies Private Limited. And this important panel discussion will be moderated by Mr. Varun. I'm giving the stage to you, Mr. Varun. Please carry on. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratibha. Thank you. Good afternoon to all the viewers. Topic for today's session that we have is health tech investment. What are the do's and don'ts? Today we are in a time that technology has entangled us so deeply that life without technology looks very incomplete. Technology brings with it enormous amount of benefits, such as an extremely connected and informed world. We have seen that more so in the time of the pandemic, that how COVID-19 was managed across the globe with various developed countries using huge amount of data available to it. And we are also witnessing at the time of vaccine development and disbursement how technology is being used. And at the same time, there are perils that come with increased use of technologies, as we are seeing in the case of increased mental health issues in the younger section of the population. Nonetheless, what we are seeing is some great business models that are emerging, especially over the course of last decade, with huge acceleration in some domains such as fintech and edtech, which has happened in the last couple of years. Healthcare is a difficult and complex industry which needs more amount of due diligence before any tech intervention is done, especially due to regulatory hurdles, complex operation, and medico legal aspects involved. Now, 2020 has been an extraordinary year for all of us. At one end, we have witnessed low mortality rates in India due to COVID 19. And at the other hand, COVID 19 has exposed our underpenetrated public healthcare system. Whereas the urban health saw a huge adoption of digitization, and we saw a huge spike in teleconsultation and telehealth services. We are all living in an interesting era where NDHM is said to be a digital backbone for healthcare infrastructure in the coming years. What it will also do is it will bridge the trust deficit between the provider and community, and have a standard of care which varies widely today. Now, digital health landscape, or health tech as we all call it, is a very broad subject which could range from pharma supply chain to administrative automation, screening diagnostic by use of AI and ML, drug discovery, virtual delivery care in terms of primary health care and second opinion services, and this list goes on. Basis the experience of the elite panel, we will keep this discussion limited to the use of technology in Indian healthcare delivery. So, are these new business models which we are seeing, are they here to stay? Are these sustainable? Is health tech here to stay? All of this is something that we are going to answer during the next 1 hour. So we will start this discussion with Dr. Nandkumar Jairam. So, what do you feel? If you can just introduce yourself and give your thoughts on how you are leveraging technology in your healthcare setup. What are your views on that, sir? Dr.
Thank
Nandkumar,
you,
I think
Varun,
you are
and
on
good
mute.
afternoon,
Yeah.
everybody. It's a pleasure to be on this panel. Uh, I'm Dr. Nandakumar Jairam. I'm a surgeon by qualification with 4 decades of surgical expertise, and now run a group of hospitals in India called Columbia Asia Hospitals as its CEO, chairman, and group medical director. Well, I have seen it emerge. I've seen technology emerge as a significant armamentarium in every aspect of healthcare over the last several decades. And if I may be specific with regard to Columbia Asia, what I would say is that we invested in technology at the very beginning of our foray into Indian healthcare. Our hospitals in India emerged about 17 years back, and even at that time, we already had our electronic health records and invested not only in the electronic health records but also in the ERP system way back 17 years ago. Now, over these almost 2 decades, the type of technology that is utilized in healthcare, the quality of technology has improved and become much more uh, efficient, if I could use the word. Take the example of our own system, the we call it the Care 21, which is our HISS. It was in its primitive form very, very inefficient and slow. And today, the same product, with the various changes that has seen it undergo, has become so much more fast, efficient, and more flexible, not only in terms of what it provides, but also the speed at which it can be changed to create better and more effective products. What is the advantage? The advantage of this is the security it offers to the data, the speed of operation, the efficiency of interdepartmental care for consultants and for patients, and so on and so forth. The efficiencies are plenty. More recently, additional areas of this technology which has emerged is teleconsultation. Teleconsultation kind of skyrocketed, as has been just said, with the COVID. But what has happened is that very quickly, both the government and all of us had to adapt to a completely new way of looking at patients, diagnosing, and treating. And it has come very far in the last 6 to 7 months. Are there other areas? Yes. And these areas are in the revolutionized treatment in many ways. Take, for example, CT scans and MRIs. The machines have advanced in technology to such an extent that the speed and efficiency of these products, which are conventional products, has certainly improved. So, sum and substance, technology has made a solid impact in the manner in which healthcare has been delivered within our own systems. And I'm sure it is here to stay. I would just like to add that technology comes at a cost. And this cost is something that one has to be aware of. And investments in technology have to be carefully done in order that we understand the cost effectiveness of the technology into which we invest. Further, there are products which are innovative, and innovative products may or may not be successful, but are the basis of advancement of technology in healthcare. And we have invested in startups which have proved to be quite useful in many instances.
That is great to hear, Dr. Jairam. I think it's wonderful the work that you're doing at your setup. I think next we'll move on with Mr. Gotham Khanna. So if you can just introduce yourself and just take us through how you're leveraging technology to improve patient outcome and delivery for your patients.
Thank you, thank you, Varun. And I'm the CEO of Hinduja Hospitals in Bombay, and I've been here for the last. This is my seventh year running, and I've been working in the healthcare space now for almost 3 decades. And I used to be in the other, in devices industry for a long time, and so I've seen multiple sides of the healthcare ecosystem. So I just want to build on to what Dr. Jairam said, and Dr. Jairam put it very beautifully that it reduces cost, increases efficiency, and gives accurate outcomes. And I just want to build on that, saying that look at how technology is impacting delivery, and we look at different ways in what it is going to do. So first, of course, is that the medical devices, the MRIs, the CT scans, all of them are much more accurate and much more reliable. So that is, I think that gives a lot of assurance and peace of mind to the clinician. So that is one point, because you can diagnose even finer things. That's one. The other thing which is emerging, and I don't know how many of us have noticed this, that there is a lot of interconnectedness possible with these tech devices. Many of them, like what we say IoT, many of them are connected. Now, even the equipment, for example, MRIs and so on, are actually connected to the service center in the company. So somebody there can monitor, diagnose, correct, fix the problem. So something which would have taken 2 days to fix, probably you can fix in a couple of hours. I mean, that is a big boon of technology from having uptime. The other thing is about video consult and teleconsult. We talked about it. See, earlier we've had remote diagnosis, and we've had people managing ICU through technology on a remote basis. Now, with this government rule, video consultation has really taken off. And I'm happy to say, to give you an example, that we've all of us been trying to get this video consult for a long time, but because of regulations it was not possible. Now, in the last 4 or 5 months, we have done, for example, I'm just sharing some number, we have done more than 20,000 video consults, and from 40 cities in the country. So what this has done suddenly is that the patients who were in cities who are not able to travel to Mumbai or talk to our doctors, it is a hassle to travel, meet the doctor. Now they can do it from the comfort of your home. I mean, it is not limited to the city in which you are placed. So that is a huge benefit in terms of delivery. And of course, now you can upload all reports, all scans, everything on that video consult platform. And so for a doctor, it is like everything is available to him, except that the person is on the screen. That's the only difference. The other thing which the technology has done, and it has brought this very clearly during this COVID time, is that we need a lot of data analysis and understanding of the trends, and that is where the AI based tools and are helpful, and they are really emerging. And I think as the time progresses, this is something which is going to continue to stay in the healthcare segment. Some things which are already existing in the earlier environment, for example, we have a virtual reality based rehab. For example, we have an equipment where for neuro rehab you can use that equipment, virtual reality based. You have trackers and sensors for monitoring the patient's health. So all these were existing, but now with this COVID, this has suddenly accelerated. So now more and more people are open to using things on remote. I mean, for example, now physiotherapy is offered on a remote basis. So you can do physiotherapy, you can do sensors. And I think, Varun, you mentioned about it, and I like to bring that point. You talked about vaccine development. And and I think the role of technology, which is often not understood, is in enhancing the collaboration amongst the research agencies across the world. So suddenly your research level is enhanced to the next level because you are able to talk to people across the world. And the things like what were like, for example, a robot already existed, but now more people are able to appreciate and they will use it. I give you an example. The we all talked about technology and for remote care. Now, in COVID, people who were under isolation but not serious enough to be admitted to a hospital, so they have to be in quarantine or isolation for 15 days. So they are concerned. So I'll give you an example of what we did. So we understood that need, and I think we were probably among the first ones in the country to do it. Now many people have done it. So we offered a home care package, COVID home care package, where a doctor does 4 times video consult with the patient. The nurse monitors the vitals every 8 hours. So and the dietitian is involved, and physiotherapy is involved, a psychological counselor is involved. So this 15 days thing, it is, of course, the this has now enabled people who are at home to get access to a healthcare facility which they would not have been able to do because they are under isolation. So it has helped us to reach out to the patients. It has helped the patients reach out to us. So I think the technology now is in multiple ways, and we can go on and on. But I think this is a short summary in my view. But over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Gautam. I think very useful insights, especially on the devices becoming more accurate, and how you have seen telemedicine go up during these recent COVID times. I think I've got a couple of more questions around that, but we'll do that after the round of introduction of the other panel member. So with that, I think I'll move to the next speaker, Mr. Rupak Barua. Sir, if you can just introduce yourself and put some thoughts around how you are using technology to leverage you leveraging technology in your setup. So I think you're on mute. I think Mr. Rupak, I think you need to unmute. We can't hear you.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon, all. And thank you so much. I'm very happy to share this platform with all these August panelists. And as Mr. Gautam has already talked about, that is what is a telehealth, teleradiology. There are so many ways right now technology is taking place in this present situation. See, if we very initially what he has given major kind of a support, that is your telehealth, teleradiology that we are all talking about. If you go through the data, actually, is each and every organization, institutes actually that have implemented in a very, very major way, that is a telehealth. Because in this COVID situation, that is the only solution that we could reach out to the mass, to the patient base. Now, when the data clearly is showing that the telehealth is just good as in-person care for a wide variety of healthcare issues. But it is also clear that the healthcare is not the same as in-person. So telehealth, if you consider, is not that in-person. So, but it is not also very professionally, if you see that they're expecting, we don't know also what the professionals are expecting to be the same can justify the comparison in their minds. So telehealth, how the telehealth is also supporting us during this pandemic situation, and in our organization, we have used in numbers in this the telehealth, teleradiology, and as a whole, as you were talking about that your the technology per se. So if we are talk about one that is in the telehealth, mostly there's a telehealth mode will never replace the gold standard. That is also we can show. That is, we are all talking about the telehealth, but yes, of course, technology cannot transform the shift. Yes, it can transform, but it cannot shift the whole gold standard of the in-person care or the majority of this. Now, how that's the telehealth, if you see, that is serves as an additional access point and point of that for the patients, and providing conventional, convenient care to the patients and from their doctor and healthcare team, and leveraging innovative technologies. More of the innovative technologies we can incorporate in the telehealth, and could improve health outcomes and reduce overall healthcare spending. So the major part of the technology, using technology in the healthcare delivery system, is one part is the safety, one part is the turnaround time is a very fast, very quick, and also this is how we can drastically we can reduce the spending part of the patient as well. Now, the rapid explosion, if you see, there's a rapid explosion in the number of telehealth visits and has transformed the healthcare delivery system, absolutely. Now, additionally, if you talk about the immediate uptake, if you say that is in telehealth, demonstrates the agility that of the healthcare system to quickly scale up and telehealth services. That is also very important, that what are the startups and the new technologies coming up, how we can scale up within a very short span of time. That also we need to look into, so that the healthcare providers, can safely take care of their patients while additionally or avoiding unnecessary kind of exposure to the virus, because that will also keep it in mind. Now, one thing now we'll have to see whenever we are talking about the technology and the telehealth, now we'll have to think about the telehealth being as good as in-person care. That is how we can think of. Now, if you see that the telehealth is not the in-person as in-person care, that is not absolutely there. But nonetheless, most of us are buying that's our books digitally now in 2020. Most of our buys, and in fact, many of us, we are buying now all the e-books, e-journals, and e-newsletters. Even we have stopped for our DNB and all the academic courses. We have stopped buying the books, and we have gone for all the e-journals and e-books. So that is the transformation has taken place. Now, delivery mechanism has changed for buying books, but many of us still spending at least a few hours a day for reading and enjoying it as well. Now, similarly, if you see, if you know, there's a healthcare delivery does not have to be in person to be effective. That also we should be very understand. Of course, many basic physical exam procedures are not yet routinely being, we can say, there is a conducted through video technology. That kind of development has not yet taken place, but is very fast. It is going out, and technology now currently, I think, if you can see, exists to improve those aspects of healthcare as well. So the question of this, that the way this technology is improving right now, that will be able to change the whole thing. Now, if you see that health technology, the way all the service providers are investing right now in technology, that is a kind of a traction this year, that data in 2018 that has mentioned about that the India's investment in health tech reached a whopping of $571 million. I'm talking about 2018. We do not have the proper data right now. What is the investment in the health technology? Technologies like machine learning, robotic surgery, telemedicine, and nanotech, IoT, lot of things actually is happening in the technology. Now, there are, as we are talking about most of these your startups, but almost 3,000 startups actually are working on this healthcare technology. They are developing many of the advanced technology to enable the healthcare system for a better delivery care. Now, there are, if we can, couple of startups, if we mention about, there's a one is the Cure AI. That Secure AI develops deep learning algorithms that interpret radiology images. That is one of the latest that the company started. Now, we all talked about M-Find. We have discussed many about this, what you call it, teleradiology, telehealth, and telemedicine. So the M-Find actually is an absolutely AI-driven healthcare network that is offering online doctors consultations. That is one part. And HealthTech provides clinical software for the doctors. There is so many clinical software they have developed, and they have also developed a very efficient kind of a EMR as well. That is one part. So there are multiple healthcare technologies are available now in the market. Each and every organization, they are investing a lot, as well as you have talked about. That is, yes, we are also in our group. We have 4 hospitals, and in our group also we have heavily introduced this your in technology and the digital part. We are trying to make our hospital as a touchless hospital because of this, considering the COVID situation, and which is way forward these organizations will take it. Thank you this much of my.
Thank you, Mr. Rupak. I think very interesting thoughts there. These new age startups, are they complementing your services, or they are a competition to the conventional way in which primary healthcare is delivered? Moving on, I think we'll move to Mr. Devanand. So if you can just introduce yourself and share your views on technology.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Varun. I mean, it's really exciting to be, among the esteemed other panelists. I think most of the areas, have been already mentioned by the other panelists. What I wanted to say is that healthcare, few people actually mentioned about it, like healthcare is undergoing a transformation. The people, the customers or the patients are also becoming more and more intelligent. They're already intelligent. They have become more smarter, saying that they are also experiencing the way other industries are taking care of them, like the retail, the automobile, or the entertainment. And they expect the same thing to happen from healthcare. So the healthcare is slowly now moving from a provider-centric to a customer-centric model, because we were focusing more on the care till now, but no more it is just the care. It is also about the service and the way things are done. How convenient are we offering the services? So these all are mattering a lot now. So there is the old concept of having detect and manage. From there, we are just slowly moving towards the predict and prevent kind of treatments. So technology is already playing a vital role, but has a major role to play in days to come. This is what we feel. Basically, when you look at, say, for example, technologies like robotics, surgeries, and artificial intelligence and machine learning. To give an instance, and one of our flagship hospital at Kerala, which is Aster MedCity, was the first one to launch the Da Vinci robot in Kerala. And we have already done more than 1,000 procedures till now. So the advantages is all known to the people, but you know that people look for lesser number of days in the hospital, lower stays, basically, low infection rates, minimal scars, less complications. So all these things are provided by that, and it also gives the surgeon the convenience, of reaching locations which otherwise would not have been possible through the conventional mode of surgeries. So robotic surgery is just one part of it, where it has proven really helpful for the care provider as well as the recipient of the care. So similarly, when you look at it, there are a lot of such things which come in. Again, one more innovation that we have done in the same hospital is the robotic pharmacy under ROA, which actually gives the inventory control, the temperature control. It also maintains the complete dispensing of the patients with utmost precision. So precision is one major thing where patient safety and convenience is also really focused upon. So what we are looking basically is a seamless flow, where the humans intervention, wherever repetitive tasks are done, use more of automation, so that you can reduce the manpower at one place, at the same time offer a best experience for the customer. So when you look at technological innovations that way, there is the remote medical care. Telehealth comes under that, but otherwise also there is remote medical devices which gives you live status of the patients, the condition of the patient, which will help the doctor also understand and assess what is the condition of my patient who's at home. So such kind of remote medical devices have come in. So the geographical limitation do not exist now. Earlier, as Mr. Gautam and other speakers also mentioned, otherwise the patient had to come to a hospital. Now there is no need for them to come. They can sit at their house and consult a doctor, also get the lab people coming and picking their samples from home. So most of the things can be done at home itself. So it provides so much of convenience to them. And we are also talking about the introduction of telepresence robots or the nurse robots, which can do some repetitive tasks which doesn't involve any specific skills. So things like that are being taken on. And during COVID, we have seen the effect of AI, especially in radiographics, how effective it was, to predict COVID, when we were not knowing how to understand the disease and how to progress. Also, the early diagnosis of cancer, neurological problems, radiographics plays a vital role, especially with the introduction of the artificial intelligence which has come in. And over and above, what I would say is that the data that we have been able to cover through this technology, especially through the health records and other things, is going to be massive, which is going to prove to be very, very beneficial, especially in terms of research and predicting the disease patterns in future. So, I mean, since others are also, have other panelists also have to speak, I'm stopping it here. Probably I'll give my inputs in a best way, probably in next point. Sorry, I forgot to introduce. I am the CEO of Aster Prime Hospital. That was supposed to be done in the beginning. Sorry. I'm with Aster for the last 12 years. And so that's about me. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Great thoughts, Mr. Devanand. I think robotic pharmacy was specifically, very interesting and something that was not unheard of. So I think we'll move to more questions around what are your considerations when you go ahead and make any of those health tech investments. But before that, I would like to introduce the last panel member, which is Dr. Venkat Ramana. So if you can just introduce yourself and share your thoughts on technology.
Yes, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
You're audible, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Dr. Venkat Ramana. Basically, I'm a clinical radiologist, consultant radiologist. I have 2 decades of experience in radiology. So I graduated from Usmania in Hyderabad, then went to UK and did all my qualifications in UK. I did my FRCR and fellowship, and then practiced as a consultant for many years. Recently came back to India about 2-3 years ago to set up my own hospital, which is Excel Hospital, small to medium size. But I still do consulting for UK NHS and Ireland and other EU countries. So basically, I'm a classic example of a doctor using technology for healthcare on a daily basis, pre-COVID, post-COVID, whatever it is. So since the last 20 years, I've been using technology in my daily practice. I don't use any books, no stethoscope, only computers and voice recognition software and AI and stuff like that. So basically, regarding teleradiology, which is well established even before COVID, because PACS came on in a big way early this millennium in the 2000, at least in UK. I think it came to India a little later, but still many hospitals in India also have PACS well established. So with PACS being established, it was a great step towards embracing technology. Patients used to come, they used to have CT scan or MRI scan, used to go back, but the images can be transferred to any part. Initially it was local, but now it is any part, literally anywhere in the world. And I report on a daily basis for scans for UK, Australia, Ireland. So it has become a common practice. And I have an internet protocol phone, which the clinicians call me for any urgent scans, ask me for stroke imaging, for any urgent queries, surgical cases, aortic aneurysms. So this has become like a wonderful thing. And when people or other people, layman, when they listen to this, they are just awestruck. So this is a classic example of technology helping the world over, not just a few people across the world. It's been helping patients to get timely diagnosis, timely treatment in an appropriate way. Post-COVID, what happened in my view is that there has been an acceleration of innovation. So things like AI, ML, which were more in a developing stage, experimental stages, which were coming up and being the buzzwords, now they are being looked at more seriously. So that is from a provider point of view, healthcare point of view. Now, what is happening from the patient's point of view? There has been a significant change, in fact, more significant in my view than the provider's point of view, because patients are now embracing technology. They are logging on to websites, they are logging on to their mobile apps. They are willing to be treated by a consultant who is not there in front of them. not even have the human touch, which is very unusual for a country like India. So most of the cases, of course, some surgical cases, acute cases cannot be treated. That is just common sense. But most of the situations which can be resolved online are being able to be resolved very easily. Patients need not travel. They need not spend too much money, time, parking. So there are so many factors which they find it very convenient. And although post-COVID, what I feel is it is not going to stay that much, but still technology, telemedicine, teleradiology are going to be here for a long run, long run. And it's time for all the healthcare providers to accept this, embrace this, and put it into their culture of practice. Otherwise, they'll be left over. The people who accept this, try to innovate, try to embrace technology, they will move on into bigger things in the future. And there have been papers published which shows even before COVID that if you do initial telemedicine consultation, have data-based patient care, patients will come back to you for your inpatients or your acute cases. So there's always a long-term benefit for both the hospital providers and for the patients. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Venkat. So, what we'll do next is we'll move on to one question that we have for each of the panel members, and after that, we'll take questions from the audience. So, my first question is for Dr. Jairam. So, what are your views on interoperability, and when can it be implemented in terms of at a national level? Right. And my second question is on the lines of health tech investment. How do you see it in terms of return whenever because being a commercial organization, obviously returns are also important whenever you make any investment. How do you see these investment in terms of the ROI?
Thank you again, Varun. Let me come to the first question on interoperability. Interoperability can connect several things. Let me illustrate this with examples. Interoperability can be the exchange of healthcare data of patients between healthcare providers. And that is already in the making. With the NDHM becoming reality, and perhaps with similar platforms opening up, personal healthcare records will be the ownership of the patient and not that of the institution. And therefore, interoperability of data will become a reality in no time. Interoperability of clinical expertise and knowledge is a different matter. It is unfortunate that we live in a world in India which is highly competitive, and sometimes this competitive nature is also self-destructive to clinical excellence. Let me quote with a few examples. If you have a hospital that has a cardiac surgical team performing good work but small volumes, and another hospital that wants to start a cardiac service but is unable to do so because they have volumes which will not support, it makes sense for the cardiac team to operate between these two hospitals and provide service in both with substantial benefit to patients. But this, unfortunately, has not seen the day of reality, and I do hope that the healthcare providers in this country would see the maturity of such interoperability and work towards it. On clinical decisions and knowledge, there is nothing like interoperability and exchange of excellence and knowledge. That needs to happen. Does it happen? Yes, it is much more a reality than exchange of clinical work. But this interoperability needs to expand and definitely increase the quality of care. I will now come to your second question, which is how do you look at the return on investments on technology? It is very difficult. It is not possible for you to do this in every single case. But there are certain areas where it becomes quite obvious that investments would be absolutely essential or not at all essential. And again, let me quote with examples. If you take the robo is a huge investment. But if you look at the clinical delivery and the clinical results in certain clinical procedures, certain operative procedures, for example, in radical prostatectomy for cancers, it is clearly demonstrated that the results are better. And therefore, that investment in a center where there is significant volume of work in the areas that are specifically advantageous is wise. And it is also possible for us to see at what point in time there will be a return on investment. But in certain essential things, like if you take the simple aspect of healthcare records, electronic records, it is very difficult to look at a return of investment and quantify it. But there are certain investments where you know that the return on investment is not appropriate, and perhaps such investments are best not done. And I refer to the Watsons of this world, where, yes, Watson is a technology that enables accurate second opinions and diagnosis of oncology, but comes at such a cost that the combined human brain of a group of clinicians can still achieve the same end result, and therefore such investments have not seen the light of day. But I must say that these are sometimes self-determined by the quality of the equipment. And you will find that healthcare providers invest in or do not invest in based upon the perceived requirement and the return itself. So, sum and substance, can I sit down, do a mathematical model and say, this is the return on investment on technology? Not always. But it is necessary that we do this based upon the facts that I've just mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jairam. I think that was very, very helpful and very insightful. Moving on to Mr. Gautam. So, what are your views in terms of how technology is shaping up new ways of delivery of healthcare? Is it there to sustain, or this is something which is a wave which will fade out? And in terms of your M&A strategy, do you look at acquiring some of these health tech startups, and are you closely watching the space in terms of what is happening, and could this lead to a bigger competition and eliminate the way in which traditional healthcare is delivered?
Thank you, Varun. First thing, I think, in my view, that technology is here to stay in healthcare delivery, because once our patients and hospitals have got the comfort that what are the advantages of using technology, I don't think it's going back. It may happen that there are some people who are more comfortable with physical and face-to-face contact. That will of course build up over a period of time, but technology is going to stay. I mean, to give you without sharing numbers, just to give you a reference, that suppose before pre-COVID there was let's say technology was used for maybe 4 or 5% of patients for consultation or whatever. Now it is probably 40-50%. Now once the everything opens up, whether this 50 will drop to 5, not at all. I think worst case it will be 40, and best case it will continue to rise to maybe 60-70. I don't know. So that, I think, is the technology is here to stay, and more technology will continue to be used in all kinds of applications, devices, trackers, monitoring, preventive health. Because one thing which COVID exposed was that people understood the importance of preventive health. So when the citizens of the country have understood the importance of preventive health, hospitals have been promoting preventive health, there is a need for monitoring, and I think this technology is here to stay. And plus the operational efficiency and the ease which comes with technology, once you get used to it, you're not going to go back. So that is my view on the technology. But in terms of I wanted to add a little bit to what Dr. Jairam said about the ROI, is that sometimes, and I think he said it beautifully about couple of examples. Sometimes ROI is not measured in terms of rupee alone, because you are doing something for a patient. For example, when you are a full service quaternary care hospital, you need to have the facilities. I mean, you need to have a gamma knife, you need to have a robot, you need to have a latest PET CT, MRI. I mean, you cannot say that I will not have a 3 Tesla MRI because it is not going to be ROI is not going to be there. You need to have it. So sometimes you need to take care of those considerations from the long-term benefit to the patients. Second thing is, for the patient point of view, it is, if it increases the patient satisfaction and hospital reputation goes up, and sometimes your strategy may be different. For example, in our case, we are a not-for-profit trust hospital, does a lot of charity. So if in our case we can dispense more charity, that would be my ROI in some sense. Coming back to your question about the health tech startups, I think firstly we are not acquiring them. So because we understand that our core competence is in running the hospital. So somebody else's core competence is in making a healthcare startup with innovation, technology, whatever they are doing. So what we do is, of course, we keep an eye on what is going on in the market, which are the newer applications, new technologies, and we give them a platform to see if we can test it for our patients' benefit. So we do that all the time. We've adopted many new innovations, for example, in like digital prescriptions. Doctors can just write and it gets scanned and stored in the computers. There is a escalation system for complaint management. There is a patient satisfaction management software. So, and of course the logistics, operationalizing the ease of billings and so on and on. So there is a lot of use of that. So we as a hospital, what we try and do is to see if our core competence of delivering good patient healthcare delivery can be complemented with the technologies which there, because some of them are very good, some of them are struggling. We will encourage them as much as possible, but we will not acquire. And my request to all the people on the panelists and people in the audience is that it is not important to acquire something. It is important in our ecosystem for the country to work. Everybody in the ecosystem should work as a partner. Everybody is in it together because the end objective is good patient care. So we are all partners in it, and that is the spirit with which we should collaborate and partner. Varun, over to you.
Thank you so much. I think that was very insightful. Moving on to Mr. Rupak, sir, question for you is, how are you embracing telehealth and teleradiology as a competition in healthcare delivery? That is the first question. And the second one is, what are the challenges that you face in terms of embracing technology as an enabler? Some of these could be skill related, purely skill related. How do you teach a doctor to adopt some of the latest new age technology, right? So how are you addressing some of those challenges? So if you can answer that.
Thank you, Varun. First, what you were talking about, the teleradiology and as a competition. See, I don't find that this is a competition. I find it is an enabler in the healthcare delivery system. Telehealth or teleradiology is a part of the system, and it is going to give us a lot of additional benefit, particularly which we are talking about, the accessibility and cost saving, turnaround time. All those things will be able to reduce whenever we are talking about delivering quality healthcare. So the teleradiology and the telehealth will be the part and parcel of the delivery system, the healthcare delivery system, and we should embrace this one. And at the fastest way, if we embrace, as Mr. Gautam was talking about, the technology is going to stay with us, and it is helpful or beneficial for all our customers, whether it is the internal or the external customers. Now, the second part, what you are talking about, the challenges, is there are multiple challenges we face at the time of implementation of the technology in the healthcare delivery system. Now, the major first that we can tell you there is a disconnect between pace of change of healthcare, that is what is happening, and pace of technology innovation. That is a major disconnect that we can see. So challenges are extremely in a different way that one has to handle different challenges, and you will have to have different way method to handle those challenges. Now, one of the major challenge what we can see, that is the challenge of interoperability between that is a different softwares. We have the different software, and due to lack of proper IT interoperability care standard not available across the care settings. That's one of the most important the challenges which we face during our implementation of the technology. Then sometimes, most of the times, as we were all talking about ROI or the fund allocations and all, we continue with the old technology because that is yes, of course, many healthcare, we are already healthcare, the service providers, we are facing heavily the financial part, and many of the time we can't, in spite of knowing that technology can drive our the delivery care, but we sometimes get constrained of the fund crisis, so we continue with the old technology. That is one part where we face the challenges. Now, there are, as I talked about, that user unfriendly, that your interfaces, very, very unfriendly interfaces sometimes we create, which at the end of the day, we don't find that it is better to use, or should we use this one, or should we go for the manual one? That is the one part. Now, other part is the overall implementation part. If really the challenges comes first is that implementation. In initial stage, whenever we are implementing any technology, we'll have to be very careful, extremely careful of our need and deliverables. If there is any gap in between, there is yes, of course, we are going to suffer a lot post implementation of the technology. And there's the other part also, we can see there's an inconsistent internet bandwidth that is happening more in this year. Here, particularly in India, we have not yet settled this, the bandwidth, which actually issuing is a very, very extensive connectivity issue, because technology is always through this your bandwidth and the connectivity. If it fails, then the whole system will get disturbed. Then there is one part also of the national information that is leading to connectivity, leading to standards and the code sets. Though this now is your digital missions, national digital missions and all we are talking about, there is a lot of things, code settings and all is going to take place. So we are expecting that much better way will be able to get the national information standards and code sets that will be able to do this one. As we have already talked about the lack of funding part, available funding, that is one of the major way the organization we are facing. And one of the major bottlenecks also we see, that is the challenges of physicians accepting the technology. As Dr. Venkat was talking about, that he has embedded actually, because he has worked in many of the digital organizations, and he could understand the advantage of the using of the technology. But many of the physicians, I think, across India will find the problem is the same. Particularly with the little bit of the senior consultants, their adaptability is very poor, and while we face a major challenge. Today, if you see that the advantage, one way these are the challenges, but other way, if we are talking about the opportunity, that the 52% of web browsing actually is happening in the mobile devices, and this is 2.7 billion people actually they have the smartphones. And now, in a recent study, it has been observed that almost 62% of the patients or the consumers, they are going for a doctor's appointment or the hospital appointment through only is a mobile device. So there is a huge opportunity, and we need to connect. We need to bridge between this the demand and what are the opportunity and what are the challenges which we have. And challenges are different way it will come. One has to understand the challenge, and considering the demand, one has to look for addressing those challenges as well. Thanks, Venkat. Thanks. Sorry, Varun.
Thank you, Mr. Barua. I think we are all living in a VUCA world, so it's important that at one end we are facing funding constraint, and at the other end we have to skill our doctors also. But I think it'll be interesting to see the hospital or the setup who's able to manage all these aspects would definitely emerge as the winner. With that, I think we'll move on to the next question, which is for Mr. Devanand. Sir, how do you see robotic surgical procedures, the increase specifically in terms of what they were, let's say, 5 years back, and the use of AI ML, in your particular setup? Are you using AI ML to improve patient outcomes? That is a question number one. And second is, in terms of EMR, what challenges do you see, and what time frame do you see that we'll be able to seamlessly implement it at a national level, whereby, let's say one patient in a remote tier 2 city is seamlessly able to move from, let's say, a urban city like Delhi or Bombay, to get a seamless experience where he does not have to start from the start in terms of his own disease management. And when do you see that happening across the country?
Yeah, thanks, Varun. It's a two questions. I think first question, I think I've covered a bit of that in my, when I started first. So robotics, anyway, like Dr. Jairam also said, there is a huge investment, especially when robotics is considered. So many hospitals may not be able to, bring in that kind of an investment. But at the same time, that offers that precision as well as that safety to the patient. So obviously, the numbers are going to pick up. People are taking it up. That's evident from the numbers that we have done recently. That's what I just mentioned, like more than 1,000 cases we could do in robotics in a place like Kochi, which is in Kerala. So I'm sure that the country will have more such centers where more surgeries are being performed. So robotics are definitely going to pick up more because people are more careful about the after effects of surgeries and post-surgical infections and shorter stays. So that's one part of it. Second, on the artificial intelligence and the machine learning. So I will combine both with the EHR part. So the EHR, when you look at it, see the data that we get in healthcare is through the EHR. We all know the importance of the health records. Basically, by getting all this data, we can predict the disease patterns. We can also have the historical data of the patient. Patient moves anywhere, he has that accessibility of having his data seen. Now that networking is not happening, and then the patient is not having that kind of a comfort at this point of time. But I'm sure that in years to come, it is going to come in. But why it is not happening? You asked about the challenges and also how to overcome, and where do you see India to reach? So I'll take it in three parts. One, challenges. Why do we have challenges? Challenges is basically because the electronic health records is primarily used by the consultant or the doctors. So their convenience is the most important parameters, or probably a change or resistance from their side in using the conventional or changing from the conventional what they used to write. They used to write and they used to have that face-to-face interaction, and that comfort zone is a little breached in terms of EHR. So now already there are modalities which has come in, whereas handwriting options are available, voice capturing modalities have come in. So which is again providing convenience to the users. Another thing is that a doctor practicing in a hospital moves to another one. He has to again learn, because the systems are not speaking with each other. They all have different systems and different type of EHR. So that becomes another problem for the doctor to adjust to this. Number of patients is another problem in India, where the number of load that our doctors handle is massive. So asking a doctor to type the entire data, which they are not accustomed to, when you don't know typing, they may be good in using their mobiles but not in typing. So obviously that speed of handling a patient and the disposal of a patient becomes very difficult for a doctor. So these are a few challenges. Multilingual problems are there. Then another problem is about the data security and privacy. We don't have any proper legal network even now in the country to protect the data of the public. So another major thing that we look at when you look at the entire EHR thing is that the computer literacy. When you see this is not really taught. People learn by themselves most of the time. There is no specific course Or so what happens is that awareness, what is the benefit of EHR, what it can give you, what is the use of the data in preventive medicine or probably in research, is something which is still not being popularized much. So all these things are actually bringing that challenge part, especially in the implementation of EHR. And also there is no integration between the consultant and the software developers. Most of the time, it is the management people like, probably the CEO and the IT manager or the finance manager is the one who will be discussing with the software developers most of the time. But at the same time, clinicians are left behind. When the system is implemented, then only most of the time clinicians are coming. But we are all changing that pattern. Now the clinicians are also part of the finalization team. But in spite of that, the integration between them is also a big challenge. So these are the few challenges that we have. But at the same time, these are all corrective things. There is a possibility of corrections if you really push to that extent. So one way of doing it is to have more awareness, and we have to take the clinicians more into confidence, one, and provide an enabling environment by providing incentivizing people in terms of their career progression, or probably monetary wise increments in a year, which may push them more. Enabling the hospitals to do more entry to EMR. EMR, basically, when I say that, there are a lot of government schemes being operated in many hospitals. So all government schemes should be moving to EHR. So which will push all the hospitals to move to EHR mode. There should be a deliberate attempt from the government side. EHR, there's some standardization of EHRs and some certifications should happen. More awareness to be created. These are some things which we can really do and provide more convenience to the user by providing the voice or the handwriting modality involving such modalities will also help the end user. One major thing that we miss is that we don't bring patient into the entire system. When patient also starts demanding that my data, I want it in digital format, so that he can also have the convenience of porting it to some other hospital. Recently, a vendor came to meet us. He had a concept where it's like an ATM card. He has a card which can be inserted in a reader, and reader and card costs only 500 rupees. So the patient, instead of carrying all the bulk files, he can take this card to any hospital, just plug and play device, computer will get his entire data. And whichever is his base hospital, he comes here, he loads the card, all his data or gets automatically synced. So these are things which really helps the patient also, to provide him better convenience in form of carrying his data. So he should be also brought into the entire system. Also, one of the other major thing is to bring this as a part of a curriculum. The data science and the health informatics should be part of curriculum in most of the colleges, which doesn't happen. So there should be a policy at the national level for EHR adoption. There should be deliberate attempt to become paperless, even though we say that we want to go totally paperless. That India as a country, we talk about it. These are steps which government should take. So with all this implementation, I hope that 5 to 10 years, India will be doing a giant, especially when the Ayushman Bharat has come in. They are taking the right steps to have more EHR in place. So I think with the EHR data coming in and the involvement of AI, all these things clubbed together, this will definitely improve the healthcare delivery in our country. That I am sure. Over to you, Varun.
Sure. Mr. Devana, I'm sure we are up for a very interesting decade in terms of overall healthcare and how it's going to be completely different in 2030. And we'll see technology is not moving anywhere from as an integral part of the healthcare delivery ecosystem. So my last question is for Dr. Venkatramana, sir. In relevance to your particular business model, it's something that you would have heard time and again. Do you see, AI and some of the recent algorithms which are coming in replacing radiology completely in the next 10 years? What are your thoughts? I'm sure you would have heard that question over and over again. But what are your views on that?
Yes. Yeah. So to give you a perspective, we have done about more than 10,000 scans in the last year to UK, USA, Australia, Ireland. And more recently, we have been in talks with AI companies to integrate into our system. In fact, I am the Royal College of Radiologists UK ambassador to India. So one of my primary objective is to establish links between UK NHS and companies or startups and academics, etc., to the Indian healthcare market. So recently we tied up with an Israeli company called AI Doc, and we have integrated. We are about to start with AI algorithms. And I also know many companies within India. I do quite often talk to them. I know Deep Tech, which is Pune based, and Cure, and then there is Niramai, which is a very nice company, which is a breast healthcare that uses AI and ML as analytics. In fact, I'm going to interview her tomorrow as part of the ISB network. And then I also know Behold, which is a UK company. Then there is a Aidens, which is based in Amsterdam. So there are so many health tech companies which were, brewing in the background, but now suddenly the focus has been on them since recent times, and also they have been receiving good investments from the investors. Whether every company is going to go ahead in the future is open for discussion, but certainly there is a potential for good performing companies. There is a potential for healthcare integration into such fields. But basically, we all have to remember one thing: we are called as healthcare. Is our care enough? Do we have a caring enough attitudes towards our patients? In terms of anything we need to do or anything we are going to do with technology, ultimately the patient should benefit. So, in other words, patient centric simply. Unless it is patient centric, no matter what you do, no matter how much of technology you have, it's not going to be cost effective. If the patients are not willing to take this up, the cost of innovation is going to be even more pushing up the cost of healthcare. So ultimately, it's a no-win situation for everybody. So any innovation should be cost efficient and embraceable by the patients and the healthcare provider. And unless we achieve that goal, it's very difficult to find common grounds for both technology and healthcare to come together. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Venkat. Okay, I think in the interest of time, we have already crossed the time that was allocated to us. What we'll do is we'll have some final closing remarks for each of the panelists, and then, Pratibha, you can probably take over. We'll start with Dr. Jairam. Sir, what are your final thoughts in terms of, technology in the next decade? How will it be? How will it shape up the entire healthcare in the country as we see today?
Well, it's an exciting time to be in healthcare, and this is the time that I feel I wish I was 10 years younger, because it would be fantastic to participate in the journey of the next decade. I would imagine there would be definite and substantial emphasis on accepting technology by all concerned in healthcare. There would be access to artificial intelligence and the use of artificial intelligence both in diagnosis and deciding the clinical treatment of patients. There will be enormous data which is available and which will be crunched to decide many aspects, starting from preventive health to the investment into healthcare in various ways. And finally, I believe that patient healthcare records and healthcare material would be in the possession of patients themselves, which will enable a huge transformation in the portability of healthcare. In that regard, I would say very similar to what has happened with the mobile technology as well as the banking service, there will be a revolution in the healthcare, particularly from the government. And this is what I foresee. Thank you.
Mr. Gautam, sir, your thoughts, final closing remarks.
So, Varun, firstly, thank you for the wonderful comments from all the panelists. I mean, I learned a lot of things. So, thank you to everybody. So, my view is that, like I mentioned earlier, technology is here to stay. So, all of us need to have a mindset to embrace the technology and utilize the technology to help us do our whatever our objective better and faster. So if we are in healthcare delivery, so be it. Can we do it much better? Can we reach more patients? And I think the thing which we should not forget is that whatever we do, and I'm sure there will be leaps and bounds, the technology will grow by leaps and bounds. We should not forget that the patient is at the center of everything. So as long as we keep patient-centric ideas and thoughts and technologies in mind, it will succeed. And I'm very sure that if we have the technologies and we embrace it, the huge infrastructure gap in the country in terms of physical infrastructure, in terms of doctors, nurses, shortage of everything in the country, that can be bridged by digital, and it is probably the easiest and the fastest way to reach healthcare to the citizens of the country.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Gautam. Mr. Rupak Barua, sir, your final thoughts, closing remarks.
Yeah, Varun, that is, I think all my fellow panelists, they have already mentioned, this is the importance of technology. We'll have to embrace this technology in our day-to-day operating situation, managing the hospital. Particularly in this COVID situation, the COVID has taught us a lot about the technology and how this technology can help in reaching out to the patient, reaching out to the large base of patient. Actually, that's through technology. Actually, it would help us, and this will continue. More of the investment will take place in, as we are talking about, almost 3,000 startups already working in this technology space. There are a huge advancement is taking place, robotics, AI, technology. So many areas, this is an advantage. Additional work is going on. Advantage will be for the patient, because we'll have to consider this a patient-centric development, patient-centric implementation, because this will give us a process efficiency, because patient will feel much better. As we are talking about today, that the healthcare delivery system should transform from the volume healthcare to value healthcare, because now we'll have to give a lot of additional value to the patient. We'll have to track the patient, per your investigation we are doing or per process we are doing. We need to understand what is the outcome of that process, because that is very important in today's situation. And this value agenda, when we are discussing, that is the only way out is the technology. So we all should talk about technology. We all should invest in technology. And whatever the challenges we have discussed earlier, we need to keep it in mind and address those challenges, and let us take it forward. Thanks for that.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Devanand, sir, your final thoughts, and how do you see the next decade in terms of technology enabling healthcare?
Thanks, Varun. First of all, thanks to all the panelists for wonderful, insights. Like Mr. Gautam said, a lot of insights to learn from each other. I would answer Varun by answering to a query raised by delegate. So he has raised a question like, can you appraise on how pandemic has pushed the investor interest in remote care and a new way of thinking about health IT investment? So I would just say, since your question is also related to future, I would like to answer like that. So Astra, I'm just taking my company perspective here. Astra as a company, we are a healthcare company, but this year we have initiated a new thing called Astra Innovation and Research Center at Bangalore in India, which primarily focuses on IT healthcare investments. And it is focusing more on the data research, blockchain, the Internet of Things, and the cognitive psychology. So these are few things which is under the scan of this particular initiative. So the future is very, very, promising. Healthcare IT investments, many healthcare companies also started coming into, this area where they want to, it's like an innovation hub where we really promote and also support the new initiatives. So the future looks very promising. Technology is here to stay. But like all the other panelists say, any technology which should provide that affordability, convenience, flexibility, other than the quality and safety to patients, that should definitely be a very successful model in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Devan. And Pratibha is already telling me that we are already 15 minutes late, but we'll just have Mr. Dr. Venkataraman conclude with his final
Yes.
thoughts.
Thank you, Varun. Thanks for all the
Dr.
panelists and the organizers, especially Mrs. Pratibha for organizing and taking the initiatives. It's a great meeting. So I just want to go back to Dr. Nandakumar's point that we all wish we were 10 years younger. Sir, I think age is only a number, and in fact, we all feel very younger because of the new technology which is coming up this year. So you're right, but at the same time, I don't have any regrets because as long as you embrace technology, whether you're young, whether you're not so young, doesn't matter really. But what I want to conclude with is, as I've been telling, any innovation, any technology, patient centric should be the key to progression to the innovation industry. Unless there is no patient centric innovation, it won't go ahead, whether it is pre-COVID or post-COVID, doesn't matter. So what I would like to end this note is, I would like to say patient engagement, as they say, is a new blockbuster drug of the century. Unless you engage the patients with your technology, with your clinical care, with the low cost innovations, unless you do that, whatever technology is there is not going to be useful, sustainable for the long term future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Venkat. No, so from my side, I think we've had some of the most prominent panel members and healthcare setups present here. So first of all, thank you so much. 2020 has been an extraordinary year for all of us, and we have been tagged as COVID warriors. And kudos to all of you for all the efforts that we have done in terms of uh, minimizing the impact of the pandemic that has come our way unseen. So thank you so much for that. In terms of return on investment, so as we understood as a consensus of the group, there's no common yardstick to measure in terms of return of investment. It could be varying from institute to institute. For some, it could be competition. For some, it could be just embracing new ways of delivery healthcare. For some, it could be patient outcome. So it really varies and depends on what type of your business model you are in, and who you are competing against. So I think that's the final remark. Thanks so much once again for the interesting session, and thank you to all the panel members. Over to you, Pratibha.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you all.
We have almost run out. The next panelists are waiting, so we have to rush. So Deepak, can you please bring in the speaker certificate? By the time I would thank Mr. Devanand Ketty, CEO of Astrapan Hospital, Hyderabad. Thanks a lot, sir, for coming in for the second edition of Healthcare Transformation Summit. Nice thoughts you
Thank
have
you,
shared.
Pratibha. Thank you, Pratibha.
Yeah. And Dr. Nandakumar Jairam, Chairman CEO and GMT Columbia Asia Hospital. Thanks a lot, sir, for sharing your thoughts and coming in. And Dr. Venkat Ramana Surigali, Director and CEO, Excel Multi-Speciality Hospital, Hyderabad. Thanks, Dr. Venkat.
Thank you.
And Mr. Gautam Khanna, CEO, PD Induja Hospital. Thanks a lot, Mr. Khanna, for joining us for this panel.
Thank you, Pratibha.
And Mr. Rupak Barua, Director and Group CEO, AMRI Hospitals Limited. Thanks a lot, Mr. Barua, for joining and giving us your thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And Mr. Varun Anga, thanks a lot for moderating the session. It was a well-rounded session and nice questions and nice thoughts from each one of the panelists. I would be expecting you all to join us in the next transformation, next edition of the summit. We'll be announcing it soon. Thanks a lot for the time, each one of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Pratibha.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.